Chapter 1. Tom, Twilight, and Spike were all walking down the dirt path to Sweet Apple Acres. The container that brought Tom to them had caused some considerable damage to the farmland, and Tom decided he was obligated to help them clean up. Though Twilight insisted that he wasn't at fault, he was adamant on helping. Spike, meanwhile, was tagging along out of curiosity about the human who, according to Twilight, turned into an armored superhero and saved Rainbow Dash from a monster she had been possessed by. So, you're saying that this Kuga guy was able to kick down so hard he could have split the planet in half? Spike asked. Something like that. Though the actual strength levels have been contested all over the place, Tom added. I don't think anyone ever agreed on how strong riders actually are. Spike was still awed at the tales of strength and heroism that Tom was telling. There were some parts that still confused him, though. Still don't get how being an alien makes you bad at making coffee, he mumbled. But Twilight was lost in her own thoughts. Spike looked back at her. You who, Twilight? He asked, but still nothing. Finally, he inhaled deeply and yelled out, Book sale! The announcement managed to rouse the alicorn from her reverie. Buh? She uttered. She then shook her head a few times. I zoned out again, didn't I? The dragon just nodded. Something on your mind, Twilight? Tom asked. Several things, actually, Twilight replied. Mainly the monster Rainbow Dash turned into and that weird watch. It looks nearly identical to the one you used, save for the coloring. Tom's face lit up at that. Good. Something I can finally help with, he cheered. That watch, like mine, is a RideWatch, basically a device containing the total history of a Kamen Rider. Twilight stopped. It contains a Kamen Rider's history. Wait, that thing was a Kamen Rider? She yelped, but Tom shook his head. No way, that thing was not a rider. Though I will admit it did look a bit like one of them, just more monstery. Twilight was confused. So, like a false rider? She asked. I don't know, Tom replied loudly. I'm sorry, I don't know much more than that. He sighed, looking down. Hey, don't beat yourself up over this. It's not your fault, Spike said, coming over to comfort the stressed hero. Spike's right, Tom, Twilight chimed in. We'll figure this out together. Tom smiled back at them. Thanks. They kept walking to their destination. Whew, that metal doohickey made a right mess of the land here, but soon it'll be good as new, Applejack said to herself. Maybe I'll plant some new trees, too. She looked at the ground she and her brother had worked to restore. Why did he have to land here? Shaking her head, she continued her work, shoveling large mounds of soil from the edges of the crater. Applejack? Twilight's voice rang out. She went over to see her friend, and of course, Tom was with her. Her normal smile at her friend's presence turned into an untrusting frown. All right, y'all, Applejack started as she got right up in Tom's face. I appreciate what you did and all yesterday, but keep your monster fighting away from this farm, you hear? She yelled. Tom wasn't sure how to reply. Applejack, that's no way to treat a friend, Twilight complained. No friend of mine, Twi, she grumbled, Twilight's indignation growing. Give it a rest, AJ. A tomboyish voice chimed in from one of the trees. Sure enough, Rainbow Dash was perched on one of the branches. She jumped in the air and spread her wings in the most showy manner possible. Then, faster than any of them realized, she had swooped down in front of Tom. She glanced Tom over a couple times. Yeah, I don't think he's any sort of threat to you, Rainbow noted. Tom smiled a bit at that. Well, Tom started, but Rainbow cut him off. I mean, look at him. He's so stringy. This made Tom less happy. Stringy? Tom thought to himself. I mean, I'm not exactly the most muscular guy, but stringy? But Rainbow Dash, he saved you from that monster that ate you, I guess. Spike chimed in. He rubbed the back of his head in embarrassment. Truthfully, he didn't really know what the monster did. Rainbow Dash rolled her eyes. Uh-huh, Sure. In truth, she didn't remember much of what happened after she had pressed the button on that weird watch she got. Alas, her ego wouldn't permit her to admit that. So, how do I prove to you I'm the one that fought the monster? Tom asked, surprising everyone. Rainbow just smirked. All right, tough guy. If you really want me to believe you, then show me how tough you are, Rainbow announced. You and me, right here, right now. Tom, in his growing irritation, was about to summon his driver, but stopped himself. No, a Kamen Rider doesn't use his powers like this. He doesn't use his powers like this, Tom began repeating to himself, while Twilight and Applejack both glared daggers at Rainbow. I need to go. Tom briskly walked away, exiting the farm. Tom, wait! Twilight called after him. Spike, go after him. Spike nodded as he pursued the rider. She then turned her angry gaze to Rainbow Dash. Are you happy now? Twilight asked. He saved your life, and all you do is insult and provoke him. Rainbow was about to reply, but Twilight cut her off. No, don't say anything right now. I'm going to help him. She turned around and stomped off. I think you went too far, Rainbow, Applejack stated. Rainbow turned to Applejack in disbelief. Excuse me? You still think he's some sort of evil alien, Rainbow retorted. The farmer inhaled deeply before replying. Whatever I think of him ain't what's important right now. He still saved your hide. Applejack's gaze met Rainbow's. Y'all owe him an apology. I'll think about it, she said, flying away towards the town. Applejack just shook her head and went back to digging, not noticing that Granny Smith was giving her a perplexed glare. As always, the market in Ponyville was full of shoppers, bargain hunters, and general commerce-minded ponies, looking to get the things they needed, and more than a few things they didn't. One of these ponies was Rarity, the town's #1 fashionista, and she never let a single pony forget it, who had only just yesterday returned from Canterlot and was shopping for some groceries, and maybe some fabrics, and whatever else caught her eye at the time. For some reason, though, she had been having migraines, accompanied by her hearing what sounded like someone shaking a bag of bits. Now, let me see. I need carrots. She made her way over to the stall operated by one Carrot Top and selected a few carrots for use in making food later. As she counted the bits she was to pay, the bizarre headache came back. Are you all right there? The carrot seller asked. Oh, I'm fine, darling. Just a bit of a headache, nothing to be concerned about, Rarity replied. She walked away with the carrots, still massaging her head. Poor thing must be suffering allergies or something. The carrot seller turned and noticed that some of her carrots were missing, and in their place was a small pile of silver coins. Hello, what's this? She took one of the coins and looked it over. These look valuable. You sure you're okay? Spike asked. He had followed Tom as he left the farm, and they were walking back to town. Yeah, I'm fine. I just really needed to get out of there, Tom replied. I just really didn't like what Rainbow there was saying. She can be kind of blunt, but she means well. I mean, she's not the element of loyalty for nothing, Spike replied. Element of loyalty? Tom asked. You should ask Twi about that later, Spike explained. Actually, while we're around town, maybe we could introduce you to Rarity. Tom was curious. Is this Rarity another one of your friends? Tom asked. She's one of Twi's and I's best friends, and she makes the best clothes in town. And she's so generous and wonderful and beautiful and... Spike was about to go on a gushing rant, but stopped himself. Oh boy, I've seen this before. Kid's got a crush. Well, hopefully she'll be more welcoming than Applejack or Rainbow Dash, Tom thought. Of course, when the duo got into town... Get your filthy mitts off my coins, you hag! One of the shopkeepers barked to a mare trying to swipe a large amount of silver coins. Don't see your name on them, she barked back, kicking him in the stomach and running away, cackling maniacally. This isn't normal, is it? Tom asked. Spike shook his head. Nope, even at their craziest, Ponyville's never devolved into anarchy this fast before, Spike replied. And it looks like that's not even it. The dragon pointed to more of the stalls being smashed and raided, all the ponies having gone crazy for those coins. Those coins. Are those cell metals? Tom yelped. What are cell metals? Spike asked. They're bad, Spike. Cell metals are bad. As he said that, some of the larger collections of metals started forming into strange mummy-esque creatures. And now we have yummies. Tom groaned as he produced his driver. Rider time! The driver rang out as Tom ran into the fray, transforming into Zeo. Meanwhile, Spike managed to duck out of the way of the chaos, but spotted Rarity. She seemed to be acting rather bizarre, as if she were in a drunken trance. And she also seemed to be dressed like she was in a drunken trance too. Something extremely out of character for her. The rather haphazard outfit she was wearing was a loud rainbow tie-dye shirt with a shawl over it, and very wide cargo shorts. Rarity! Spike called out. Slowly the mare turned around, her eyes looking extremely tired, as if she had experienced years of horrors in the span of an hour. Spike, you're here. Thank goodness. She stammered. As she got up, more cell metals fell off her body. Rarity? Spike was unnerved. This was not the wonderful, stylish mare he knew. Spike, please, run away! She yelped, before falling to the ground, cascades of cell metals pouring out of her. The metals began to coalesce around her, until they formed a shell and took a new shape. Rarity! Spike screamed. Zeo was currently embroiled in a battle against several waste yummies, spawned from the cell metals that had been piling up. There were a large amount of them, and he was in a tough spot due to their numbers. Furthermore, there were still townsfolk trapped in the stalls and nearby buildings, so he couldn't use anything too explosive. Thankfully, he had an idea. He quickly stepped up to a waste yummy and grabbed its arm with both of his hands. Take this! He hurled the monster over his shoulder into a large group of its brethren. He kept repeating this strategy, using the monsters as thrown projectiles, but not necessarily to defeat them outright. Almost got him right where I need him, Zeo thought as he focused on the fight at hand. And then all the waste yummies were gathered in an open space near the end of the destroyed market. It's now or never! He pressed the button on his RideWatch and turned his driver, activating his finisher. The multiple projected kick words kept the monsters corralled as Zeo's rider kick pierced through them, destroying them all in an explosion and causing broken cell metals to scatter around before dissolving into dust. Not sparing any of that change, Zeo quipped, poorly. Help! The voice of Spike echoed out. Oh crap, Spike! Zeo ran after the source of the voice. Spike was running away from an armored monster. The beast had a red-colored helm whose face seemed to resemble the face of a bird, with a circular breastplate and a pair of spiked pauldrons held on by spiked belts. Its arms strongly resembled the claws of a tiger, and its legs were covered in scaly, insect-like designs, mostly resembling a grasshopper. On its waist was a strange tilted buckle with 3 gems embedded in it. The front of its breastplate depicted a red hawk, a yellow tiger, and a green grasshopper, as well as a pattern of 3 circles. Wait, this rider I remember! It's mimicking O's! Zeo realized. He dove in front of the monster and punched it with full force, sending it flying back a fair way. You okay, Spike? Zeo asked the dragon. The frightened Spike just nodded. I'm sure of it. Those cell metals came from that thing! He summoned his Edge of Time, preparing to battle the false rider. Wait! That's Rarity in there! That monster took over her body! Spike shouted. Please, you've got to help her! Zeo nodded. I'll save her, I promise. The rider turned to the monster. He brandished his blade and ran at the monster, trying to score a quick hit. But as he was running, the monster's legs started to light up, and it jumped at incredible height, landing on the awnings of one of the less damaged stalls. High jump. That's the trademark ability of the Bata Metal, Zeo observed, but got an idea when he noticed the loose awning the monster perched itself on. He changed his sword over to its gun configuration, and then aimed a shot at the awning, causing the monster to lose its balance. When it fell, several more cell metals spilled from it, which the greed-crazed ponies rushed to grab. Hey, what are you? Get to safety! Zeo announced, but his plea fell on deaf ears. He tried to usher the crazed ponies away, but they all resisted, one of them even attempting to bite him. Gah! It's no good! They've all been driven crazy for cell metals! Zio realized, as the monster ran at him and slashed him across the chest with its claw. Ugh! Zio hissed in pain, staggering back. The monster lunged forward, Zio only barely avoiding its attack by a sidestep. The pony still pursued the monster, trying to scoop up any metals that fell from it. This is really bad. I can't fight this thing if the townsfolk keep getting in my way, Zio thought. I can't let it end here. What do I do? But as he said that, a sparkling purple light washed over the area, and the crazed ponies all seemed to fall into a relaxed state. Was that magic? Zio asked, but was then caught off guard by a blue streak slamming itself into the monster, knocking it away from the dazed ponies. Hey! A raspy voice called out. Zio recognized the voice. It was Rainbow Dash. She had kicked the monster in its chest, causing more metals to spill as it fell over. But the formerly greed-stricken ponies did nothing. Don't worry about them! Twilight's over there keeping them under a calming spell! She pointed behind Zio and he saw Twilight, focusing intensely as the purple aura spread. She can't keep it up forever, though, so we need to finish this fast! The monster regained its footing and swiped a few times at its assailant. Dash just flew out of its range, taunting it. Meanwhile, Zio took his chance and threw a few punches at it, not giving the monster any room to fight back. The monster then roared and spawned 3 more waste yummies. The mummy-esque creatures surrounded Zio and tried to grab him. Zio turned his gun back to its blade formation and started striking fiercely against the yummies, causing them to explode into broken bits of cell metal. As Zio was occupied, the monster tried to use its high jumps to escape, but found that every time it tried, Rainbow Dash would smack it back down. Twilight, meanwhile, was still maintaining the pacifying spell, but had more waste yummies approaching her. Damn it! What do I do now? Zio growled. But then something came to mind. The other RideWatch he had retrieved. Zio produced the RideWatch and turned its bezel. The image on the watch was completed by this. It was Kamen Rider Build. Can I use Build's power with this? Zio asked. I don't have time to hesitate. He inserted the watch into the other side of his driver and spun it. Armor time! The belt announced as the waste yummies were blasted back by an animated armor. Said armor resembled Zio's existing one to some degree, but it had noticeable add-ons, namely large bottle-shaped shoulder pads, a drill-like weapon on its right arm, and different sets of characters on its visor. The armor then burst apart and attached itself to Zio. Best match! Build! The driver sang out. Build's power. I've got the solution. He cheered. He took the drill weapon and ran at all the waste yummies about to converge on Twilight, skewering them until they all exploded. Twilight, are you okay? Zio yelled with concern. I'm fine, but I can't keep this spell active for much longer. Hurry, she grunted. Zio nodded and turned his attention to the monster that was still locked in combat with Rainbow Dash. He dashed over and whacked it with the drill. Mind if I cut in? He snarkily asked. Huh. Well, you really are strong, she remarked. Zio stopped her before she said anything else. It can wait until after, he said, and pressed both RideWatches. Finish time! Build! The belt yelled, as a projection of 2 curving lines appeared above them. The lines moved to flank the monster on both sides before clamping themselves together around it. Ready, Rainbow? This is how you do a rider kick, Zio announced, jumping high in the air. Rainbow Dash moved in sync, flying up and following the rider's lead. Vortex time break! The belt rang out as both Zio's and Rainbow's kicks struck the monster, causing it to destabilize and release Rarity from it, before exploding and turning back into a watch. Ah! Rarity! As the fighting ceased, Spike ran out from hiding to catch the fashion-minded mare. She was unconscious, but still breathing. That was... Ooh... Zio grunted, undoing his transformation. Tom was displaying various bruises and holding his arm over his chest. He fell to his knees, panting for breath. You really did save me, Rainbow noted. Yeah, don't mention it, Tom wheezed. Well, you better keep going, Rainbow yelled as she flew off. You're welcome. Tom groaned before he fell over and lost consciousness himself. A couple of hours had passed, with Tom and Rarity being brought back to Twilight's castle. Rainbow Dash was helping out the townsfolk with rebuilding, while Twilight was tending to her friends. Ugh. Tom groaned in pain as he started to come around. You're okay! Twilight cheered as she grabbed the rider in a tight hug. Thank you, thank you, thank you! She repeated as she squeezed Tom tightly. I can't breathe, he squeaked out. Twilight released him at that, a blush appearing on her face. I'm just really glad you're okay, she nervously replied. Tom looked around. What about that other lady? Rarity, I think. Twilight nodded. She's still unconscious, but she's going to be fine. I think out of the two of you, you're the one who took more damage, Twilight noted. Tom looked himself over. His torso had been bandaged, and he could feel bandages on his face. Welcome to the usual life of a Kamen Rider. It's a pretty rough time, he snarked. Oh, what happened? The two of them heard a feminine voice. Rarity's awake, Twilight cheered. Wait, what is this? What am I wearing? The voice resumed, starting to panic. Mirror, mirror. Oh, here we go. But a few seconds after that was said, a new sound echoed through the castle. In this case, an incredibly loud scream. Around the same time, a train rolled into Ponyville Station. Its passengers began disembarking, including one pink pony who was bundled in a big coat and wearing a medical mask over her face. She was clutching her bag in one hand, but seemed to be in a hurry to get somewhere. Oh, I need to fix this, she wheezed as she made her way into the bakery she lived in. The Sugar Cube Corner Bakery was quite a hotspot in Ponyville, as it not only housed a family of skilled confectioners, but was also home to the premier party pony, Pinkie Pie. She had been out of town for a couple of days to visit her family, but she had returned today. The bell rang as the door was opened. One of the owners, a blue-furred mare, approached the counter. She was in a blue dress with a white apron over it. Oh, Pinkie, dear, you're back. How was your... She started. Good to see you too, Mrs. Cake, but I have something really urgent to take care of. Bye. She spat out as she ran up the stairs. Goodness, I've never seen Pinkie act like that before. I hope she's all right. Mrs. Cake wondered, unaware of the terrible fate that had befallen Pinkie while she was away.